What's going on, everyone? So we got some interesting news in regards to the Conjuring universe. So we are getting a new film, Conjuring the Last Rite. It's supposed to come out in September 5th. And that is what appears to be the last film in what is being called Phase 1, right? After this film, which this film is supposed to kind of tie up loose ends, kind of conclude and finish the Warren story, and then they are supposed to look to enact Phase 2, and we'll get a new set of films or however long they go with the franchise. Now, a couple things, right? One, we don't know what Phase 2 is, right? They just kind of teased that, hey, there's Phase 2. Two, this new Conjuring film, the director's cut has been tested, and apparently, according to the people that are doing it, right, all say that it's testing through the roof, that it's doing really well. So that's a good sign, right? Some of the Conjuring movies have been hit or miss to some people. Generally, the Conjuring franchise, I do think, is beloved. People really do like the franchise in the horror space. The Devil Made Me Do It was kind of one of the ones that people just felt kind of dropped the ball, right? It wasn't really as like scary and about, it was more like the murder trial. It was almost like watching like a true crime documentary or something like that, rather than like, hey, this is like this paranormal horror franchise. And I'm not saying that there weren't people that loved that film, but no, the consensus was like, hey, this didn't really feel like a Conjuring movie. Where the new, Last Rite, that's supposed to kind of get back to what made the other films successful and kind of really sparked and launched this franchise into the success that it's had. Now, as far as Phase 2 goes, we don't know what that will be and what that will look like, right? Again, they just kind of tease that they're going into Phase 2. Marvel has kind of, created this like phase, hey, we're doing this, and then it goes into Phase 2, but also you have like the Conjuring franchise and you have like this merger going on behind the scenes. You have just a lot going on. So I imagine you're going to have new people and new directions and new ideas and new stories. And as long as it doesn't lose its essence, right? You don't want to see it lose what made it so successful and what attracts audiences to continue to see those films, right? You don't want to lose the plot. To me, there's a clear kind of understanding of what the Conjuring franchise is. And look, we've had all kinds of like little spin-offs, with the Annabelle and, the Nun and all of these things. And some of them weren't even like real stories, right? Whether you believe in that stuff or you don't believe in that stuff, right? Most of them all stem from the Warren family and their, investigations into the paranormal and stuff like that, right? Actually did a whole like deep dive video into the Warrens like years ago. So check that out if you're interested in kind of the story of the Warrens. But nonetheless, right, you had things like The Nun, which kind of became its own thing. And, they created this own story and did all these things. And, and they've had even those off-branch films kind of tie into the main story. And I think that they've done a really good job with this web of films in the Conjuring universe, and has been one of the most, if not the most successful kind of universal horror, right? It's something that, they've tried to do for years, right? Since like the 80s. They were trying to make like a legit horror universe where like, Jason ties into the Evil Dead and Freddy Krueger ties it, like, and they've tried to create these like, horror universes. Universal has done it with like, the Wolfman and Frankenstein and all these things. They've tried to make these horror franchises all kind of connect and link and have like, share the same universe and do all this stuff. And, there hasn't really been that success where something like the Conjuring universe, who, like the Marvel example, where you have like, the Marvel films, and then you have all these other little off branches that all kind of, tie into the Marvel films. Problem is that they just kind of got like convoluted, right? You just started pumping out so much content, it just kind of washed itself out. Where the Conjuring universe, you're getting films every few years, even like the in-between films, you're not getting 2, 3, 4 films in a year. For Conjuring universe. So I think that they've done a good job with like the pace of these films. I think they've done a good job with having like good quality kind of like interwebbed films. things that kind of weave within the main story of the main universe and have things and like little clues that tie in and connections, right? Particularly like with the Nun franchise and stuff like that, where, you know, the first Conjuring film, the way it starts and how it ends, and, you know, you kind of have like those links that now you can go back to, and even if you didn't recognize it or you didn't notice it there, it exists, and you can, you know, you're doing a rewatch or something, you're like, oh my goodness, like that's how this is that and this is that, right? Like, and I think that they have, again, done a really good job of kind of doing that. Have some of the movies been better than others? Of course, right? But I do think it's been one of the most successful at just kind of having these like off-branch sort of, you know, horror films within this universe that they've created in the Conjuring universe, and been able to kind of keep it together, tie the story, have cohesiveness while, you know, telling new stories in the main story timeline. And I think that there's been a lot of success in that regard. So my point is, like, I don't want to see them lose the plot, right? I want to see it kind of continue to be this thing. My concern is that they're just going to go in a new, completely different direction, and it kind of gets further and further away from what, again, made the franchise so successful. And I'm not saying that they have to make them all about the Warrens. I mean, they can. The Warrens have something like, you know, 1,000 documented cases or something crazy like that, right? Like, but what I'm saying is, like, I'm not saying that they have to do the Warrens and they have to do all the Warren stories and all that stuff. They can do their own things. We've seen that have success. We've seen them do all these sequels, like all the Annabelle sequels, and, you know, again, the Nuns and the Nun sequel and all that stuff. Like, they've done a good job of kind of like, again, telling these stories that don't necessarily involve the Warrens. So they have shown that they can do that, but you also don't want to start creating these things. Again, great example would be the Devil Made Me Do It, where it kind of just felt like it lost the plot a little bit, right? Again, it didn't really quite feel and seem like a Conjuring film. I respect that they tried to do something different. They tried to tell this real life story and this real life trial, and, you know, and you know, the Warren side of things, and they try to keep it relatively true, which is good, right? You want that, right? Like, but, you know, it's still Hollywood. It's still a horror film. It's that you gotta kind of amp it up a little bit. You gotta kind of spice, you know, movie sense, right? Like, you know, nothing's, you know, fully true to the story. Even like the true stories or based on a true story, unless documentary, get a little movie touch, a little movie magic. But in the horror space, it's necessary in a lot of ways, right? Because you want it to scare and attract audiences and keep people, you know, glued to the screen. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? You know, are you excited for phase 2? Are you excited for this last film in phase 1, The Last Rite? How do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are. Love to hear it either way. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. If you enjoy these types of videos, I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel. What are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.